Hey everybody, welcome to my favorite shitty movie. It's me, Todd. I'm very excited about tonight. We've got actor-comedian Scott Krinsky here to talk about the infamous Sleepaway Camp from the 1980s, a slasher movie ripoff of Friday the 13th that takes place at a sleepaway camp with a bunch of campers who are assholes, and maybe they get what they deserve. Maybe that's what it's about. Maybe that's the whole thing, but then there's this twist at the end. We'll get into it, but it's a crazy it's a crazy twist that made it very controversial, and I don't know why. It's kind of silly. But hey, I've got my Sleepaway Camp survival kit right here to help me through this. This is the DVD box set that comes with all three Sleepaway Camp movies. You can see them there, and it has the footage. They put the footage in for the fourth Sleepaway Camp, which was to be called Sleepaway Camp 4: The Survivor, and it's just like maybe 7 scenes, and you see all the takes they did of each moment, and it's I don't know what was going to happen. I think maybe they meant it to be a slasher movie where a lady kills people, but they're not expecting a lady to kill him. I guess that seems to be the basic, because there's the 2 sequels after the original that we're talking about had Pamela Springsteen, Bruce Springsteen's sister, and she was Angela. And in the first one, you don't know who's doing the killing. It's all sort of POV killing. And then they reveal at the end, oh my God, it's Pamela. And then in the sequel, Pamela's played by an older actress, and it's Pamela Springsteen. And in these 2 sequels, 2 and 3, you know who the killer is because they tell you right away. It's Angela, and you just watch Angela killing people. That's it. That's 2 and 3. The third one's got Michael J. Pollard in some very uncomfortable sexual situations. So if that's something you're interested in, go for it. And then in 2008, Return to Sleepaway Camp came out, and it's ostensibly about a picked on, overweight boy who never changes his clothes, and you think he's killing everybody, but guess who's killing him? It's Angela's killing him. She's the one. And in this one, it's the original Angela, not Bruce Springsteen's sister. It's the original one. That's the big twist. She doesn't show up till the very end. Oh boy, I just ruined that whole movie. Actually, if it ruined that movie, you shouldn't watch it. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get deep into Sleepaway Camp, I'm going to bring in my co-host and see what she's got to say about this crazy thing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tracy Mercer.
Oh my God! Wow, that was like a masterclass in something.
I don't know how else to break down the Sleepaway Camp franchise.
Well, it's so funny because again, it's so of its era. It was absolutely controversial then. It in many ways might be seen by some as more controversial now. We'll get into that when we get to the story. But what's so weird to me is Hollywood loves a hit. We love to copy and do very slight, variations on a theme when there's a success. And I think it's so interesting. Like we talked about on the show, because I'm probably a little bit more Halloween. You're definitely a lot more Friday the 13th, but there's
I love Halloween too.
Yeah. But I mean,
Halloween's a more uneven franchise if you consider the starting place. Well, I'm just saying Friday the 13th, the original, is a really dumb slasher movie.
Yes. I think
the franchise maintains that throughout.
Yes, in that way, it's very consistent. That's a good way to frame it. But what's interesting to me about this, which we talked a little bit about, but since we're getting into October and it's Halloween, I guess we should light the candle for Halloween. This is my Vincent Price, St. Vincent Price.
Oh.
What's interesting is that, of course, Halloween, independent film in its day, comes out, not an immediate success, got eviscerated by critics. And then The Village Voice said, actually, I'm not so sure that this isn't like a Hitchcockian film. Suddenly, it was rolling out slowly in drive-ins. other critics re-reviewed the film and suddenly decided it was Hitchcockian and great, monkey see, monkey do. And then all of a sudden it became the phenomenon that we know. And up until I think My Big Fat Greek Wedding, it was like the highest grossing independent film ever. But like that, to your point, is the artistry of the great John Carpenter with his partner Deborah Hill, who co-wrote and produced the film. He, of course, co-wrote and directed. But what's ballsy about Halloween to me is that he's shooting it, like in John Ford aspect ratio, and so that movie starts off so wide and you're trying to fill in the space of where is he? And then by the time you get to that closet at the end, I mean, it's psychologically, it's a level of filmmaking, but obviously that success on that indie film led Paramount to say, we should do like a horror film that's connected to a holiday. And what they had that Carpenter didn't have, of course, was Paramount being able to release it in multiple theaters. And that really cleaned up. But what's interesting is I think without Halloween, you don't necessarily get Friday the 13th, but certainly it's true. Without Friday the 13th, you would not get the film we're here to talk about. Sleepaway Camp. And what's interesting about this movie, like the first Friday the 13th, it's a whodunit slasher. It's a point of view horror film. It tries to keep you guessing. It gives you loathsome characters that you're okay losing. And so it's one of those questions like, who am I rooting for? As I watch this. But the kills are crazy. There's a twist that in its day was like, what? And we're still talking about it. And to your point, like these people are so passionate. They're like, hey, we didn't even get to finish our film. Here's 7 scenes and outtakes. Like, it's like, so there's got to be like this dedicated Sleepaway Camp community out there, and bless the fans. Like I got love for that. If this is what
there clearly is. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot to love about Sleepaway Camp. I mean, it's over the top performances. An 80s slasher movie without gratuitous female nudity is a unicorn.
I want to talk about that too when we bring our guest up, because I think there's I think Jeff, you as always have put your finger on something that's very unusual about this film, but also the genre in general. So yeah, let's talk about it.
Just for the record, they fixed that in the sequels.
Fix. Oh, thank God. That's what we needed. We needed more silicone and movement. I would have made it better.
In the 2008 one, Return to Sleepaway Camp, I don't think there's any gratuitous female nudity, but in 2 and 3, especially 3, it's mostly about gratuitous female nudity. Again, the third one is the most disturbing because it involves Michael J. Pollard, I think. But the Return also, it has that guy. I can't remember the actor's name, but he was on The Sopranos. He played Pussy. Oh. Did you watch The Sopranos?
You know what? Guilty. No.
Okay, that's fine. But anyone who does knows exactly who I'm talking about. So he's the camp owner in this one. Oh, and hilarious. There's a bunch of actors who were in the very original one who are back in this one. And then it's got other recognizable character actors, but probably most notably, it's got Isaac Hayes as the chef at the Sleepaway Camp.
So it's like a South Park universe crossover.
They had to get permission from Trey Parker and Matt or whatever their names are, and it looks like they got it.
All right, very cool. That must have been before they upset him with all the anti-Scientology stuff. It's a different.
That was before, yeah. Oh wait, that was before all that.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah, good time. Good times. Hey, let's bring on our guest. He's an actor and a comedian. He's been on the TV show. You know him from the TV show Chuck, Michael Bay's Transformers, and the movie Tangerine. His name is Scott Krinsky. Please welcome to the show.
Scott,
welcome, guys.
How's it going, man?
Hey, going well.
Hey.
Ready to
jump into
trigger my PTSD because I did go to Sleepaway Camp.
Oh no! Were there murders?
There weren't murders.
Oh no!
Mine was more like meatballs than this movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you left the owner of the camp on a raft at the end of the summer? That's not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, Morty's not a bad guy, but the Sleepaway Camp owner director is not he's bad.
everybody who works at this camp says and does inappropriate
Yeah,
things.
I mean, he was trying to have one of the girls. Well, it was a counselor, so I guess
Yeah.
she was of age, but still, it was kind of creepy.
Very questionable.
Come
Very
to
questionable.
my bunk or whatever it was.
It's so wrong. Well, it's also like it's Todd and I talk about this a lot on the show because I think this is kind of morphed a little bit into a Gen X safe space, or like if you're triggered and you're easily offended, maybe we're not the right.
But she was going to go too.
Well,
so maybe she had like a daddy complex. We don't want to say why she didn't go.
Right. But it's also like there are so many things in this movie. And again, I'm not going to die on the hill for this being like, Tarkovsky or something. But like, some of the early jokes about the underage girls, the behavior, like today, you wouldn't make this kind of movie. And there's something that is kind of cheesy and wonderful as it is. It almost feels a little more verboten, like, okay, a time not that long ago in our lifetimes, like we were pumping out this genre like crazy. And we're still talking about these films. Like if you go to the cons, the Sleepaway Camp is huge. It's always being talked about to be remade. It's like, the cast is signing stuff always. This is one in a time where there were a bunch that has not gone away. So for whatever reason, and we'll get into it, like it's still very present in people's minds.
I think they should open a Sleepaway clothing store because I just loved the vintage. It felt like walking into, Jet Rag here in LA or any vintage store, all the clothes.
I love it. It's so true. Especially the guy who runs the camp, like his whole he's like Ted Knight in Caddyshack, and like he's so good. Like
but he's grosser. Like he's like out of the gate. There's something about that guy that grosses me out. He doesn't even show me until later why he's gross. But immediately I was like, this guy seems gross.
Like just look at him. He's like hitting on the young girl. I mean, this is everything. The white belt, the checkered pants, the smoking next to the kids.
Constantly cigars, yeah.
All of it is like, yeah, that's not happening right now in 2024. So Scott, tell us what is your definition, first off, of what makes a great shitty movie? And so how did you come to pick this one? And as part of that answer, did you see this as a kid in the theaters or VHS?
No, I saw it a long time ago, but then I rewatched it because I had to refresh myself. But I think a great shitty movie is just like a bad movie, but that you can't stop watching, that you don't look at your phone while you're watching it. I mean, that you laugh when you're, because this movie is just, like you see everything coming, and it's just, you're just kind of in awe of like you're still watching it. I think a bad shitty movie is like, why am I still watching this? Because I can't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a freeway crash, You can't, you have to slow down and look at it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, and we should also give it props. I mean, it was, even in its day, an independent movie. And apparently the director in real life had gone to this particular camp as a child. So he sought out this location because he knew it. And because of when they could get it, and they had to work around things, because obviously summer camps are busy in the summer, which is why that the leaves are changing in summer. Said no one ever, but like that's when they could film the movie. And so there are these little moments like the leaves.
It's a nice little accident though, because it looks so pretty there.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful location.
Well, it's like a good wine, right? It wasn't ready to drink when it was young, but then it got better with age.
Let's go with that. 2 buckshot age as well.
Autumn is so much more picturesque than summer on the East Coast anyway. So we'll just pretend that they changed
earlier. AI back then.
It's because of global warming. That's why.
But it's also locations. I mean, as much as we talked about Halloween, I love the original 78 Halloween, but there are scenes, if you look in the background, where you see palm trees, and like you're not in Haddonfield, like Illinois.
No, and all the license plates on the car say California.
Maybe it was, Indian summer in October.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, there's also something about that independent spirit of like, you know what? This is the location we have when we have it, and we've got the money. Let's do it. And I love that, and that's why I think horror films, no matter how low budget, they're just usually. I think that's why so many of them are talked about on our show. You can't look away, and they're just a delight and a time capsule of when they were made. Often, right?
I'm hoping this director, like a singer with a one hit wonder, live off this movie.
Yes.
I don't think so.
No.
Probably not.
Well, there was some he like
but his questionable investors are probably doing okay. I don't know who financed this thing, but it's suspect, I think.
He did. There is something I remember reading. He did sell the rights, not knowing what was going to come, and then he had to fight to get them back. So I think, and then probably didn't have the full financing, which is the stuff that Todd has. But yeah, it's. But you know, oh gosh, the gal Rose, who plays Angela in this, she's pretty vocal on social media about wanting to revisit Angela, and she goes to the cons.
Felissa Rose is her name.
Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the kids who haven't seen it in a minute, as best as you can, walk us through story-wise, like Sleepaway Camp. How do we open? What's the setup?
It's a very complicated narrative, so take your time.
Yes.
Am I going to walk you through this?
Yeah, just take us. How does this start?
We open with a lovely day of water skiing, like your dream vacation, and then these two little kids and their dad get slaughtered. or somebody does.
They all three do. Well, yeah.
No,
I guess they don't all three. Two of the three, right?
Two of the three.
Are killed by a motorboat, and it's a girl who's like. First of all, she shouldn't be driving because she's a girl. That's made clear.
Yeah, that's what it was about.
And then she gets behind the wheel, and as soon as she gets behind the wheel, dead people. So that's your first message.
There are still water skiing accidents like this.
Yeah. Well, my favorite is the guy who lets her drive is sitting like he'd be like right here, and he's like, turn the boat. But why did you turn the fucking way? You know, he completely could have prevented it, but it just doesn't. You know, kills off dad and one of the kids. Right. So we've got this kind of like, cut. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're going to send you off, Angela. We meet Angela, who's like super weird always. And we've got this parental figure with like her cousin. Yeah. And, it's like, Angela's like, okay, we're going to go to Sleepaway Camp. They already have their shirts. They're ready to go, right, to Camp Arawak. I think that's
there's the aunt, right? That's the boy's mother, right?
Yes, the boy's mother is how they're introduced.
Like she's like the mink stole of
oh my god totally right down to the hand gestures, which sharp-eyed audience
like a whole nother film.
That's a whole other
if that's even possible with this film. Be in another film.
Totally. So they're off, right? They go to
mushrooms or something.
You start to meet the guys that work in the kitchen, the mess hall of the camp.
And I appreciate the diversity here also. No, really. I think it was,
It's diversity, but they all unify over being creeps. They all unify over sexualizing children.
No, not the kitchen. What the Earl Jones character? What's that?
Oh yeah. Well,
he was a good guy, right? Right? He didn't.
Yeah. Well, he was a little. I don't want to say Stephen Fetchit, but like he's there. We don't.
He's pictured here just as a note. He's pictured here laughing at the open pedophile.
Oh,
basically saying he's going to go rape one of the.
Artie.
Yeah, and he's like, "Aha, you're crazy." Aha. So I don't know. Also, I don't know how good a guy he is.
The guy prepping your food who's this dirty, it's a little like.
They're all dirty.
Yeah,
they're very dirty.
Well, they didn't,
before we had
give
restaurant
they didn't, have health codes back then.
Yeah, exactly. I think they would not have passed. So we see Angela and her cousin go, and then we meet his really good friend who, because he's a teen boy, is talking about boobs. One of my favorite characters, the bitch,
The bitch,
Judy.
the mean girl.
She gives the best side eye. Like, she's practically like a Frenchie, like she's just like always looking mean, always doing something crazy, for no reason other than this. I guess she's kind of like the Blair. If we're doing a facts of life.
I think when she has her hair all on one side, she can't
like
help
Suzanne Summers.
She's weighted into a side eye. She has no choice.
Yeah, it's Three's Company. This hairstyle, she's just amazing. I appreciate her. But then you're right, we get immediately into like, oh, Angela's not eating, Angela doesn't talk. And then I love, and to Jeff's point, there may not be any female nudity in this, but they sure do objectify the hell out of every dude in this film in a way that is not it's not something you see a lot in this genre, because to Jeff's point, it's always about the naked girls. And this one, I'm like, oh my God, all the guys are really, I mean, they go to town with, like, I don't know, the guys stand like this normally and they play. I mean, this seems very progressive.
Tracy, have you ever seen a David DeCoteau film?
DeCoteau, no.
Whoa.
Like, for example, Leeches, the film Leeches. And he did like a couple of I think they were called crocodile or alligator movies, whatever they were. But look up David DeCoteau if you want to see this version of the gays, which is sort of a gay gaze on guys. Totally. His movies are all about that, and it's hilarious. They're not gay characters,
right?
This is the eye of the director who's like, I'm going to focus on these guys.
Yeah, and they do that a lot in this film, which, I mean, I'm all here for it. Equal time. But it's unusual in this era, for sure. With everything else that's going on in the film, we'll get to the twist. It adds a layer, and this director, I believe, is straight, married to a lady, and in fact, the stunt girl who swims back in one of the scenes is the gal he would wind up marrying. So but it's interesting when a straight director makes these choices. I would love to interview him and say
he was very progressive.
Very progressive.
70s, right? 78.
I think this is like 83.
83, yeah.
It's like 82, yeah.
In 82, so it's like that era.
Yeah.
It's Reagan era. I mean, it's the rise of AIDS. It's like we have a president who can't even utter the word yet. We're losing a whole generation of guys, and then he
wanted to say the word, he just kept forgetting it.
No, that was the second term.
Was it?
Before Nancy took over. I wear red. I talk to astrologers. I buy China. Anyway, I started to reduce her. Not really. So going back to Sleepaway Camp. So you've got these characters. This is so creepy. Again, today you would just be like, you wouldn't do this. But it does set up the need to violently dispatch this dude because he's a creeper, and it would be rapist pedophile person. One of the things I love about this movie is the kills. Like, they really do try to go out of their way. In addition to objectifying all the men, they sometimes they spend a lot of time setting up a very simple kill, but they go out of their way to try to make the kill itself unique. So in this one, build up to he's a chef, and there's like this huge pot that looks like a water heater for corn. And you're like, oh, this is not good, and just like he's hanging on, and it's like she's gonna pull him over. Is he gonna fall in? What's gonna happen, right? But he gets terribly scarred and burned. But like the clutching hand, the guy who comes in, this is a director who really just was enjoying himself with like the kills and the practical makeup, and it's pretty out of control.
Well, and he's working around like no money for practical effects, so there was a lot of cutaways and stuff, which is a tradition the franchise maintains.
And there's also a lot of like 2-shots, master shots with the whole cast. Like, you could tell they were working at a clip because there's a lot of
there's a bunch of scenes where I thought, oh, this is lovely staging for a 99 seat theater play. This is they have their levels. They're a little bit separated. That's nice. It's not. They're not all just in a line.
Exactly. But except when they are like, I again juxtaposing like how are the women photographed, right? So it's like the gals are kind of mouthing off to the guys, and then you cut to like the larger guy group, and they're not even buckling their pants. I mean, it's like they just are walking around, and there's a couple shots where they're in their like skivvies, and you're like, why is this guy in his underwear and everyone else is dressed? And it's a delight.
Well, summer camp is super horny.
Yeah,
apparently, like they're trying to hit on
a lot of experimenting's happening.
Yeah. For sure, a lot of experimenting,
and like more than we even know. Speaking of experimenting, there's more than we even know.
I'm sure. So you've got all these kind of sequences. So this guy, is badly burned, and then you've got like the sheriff comes in, and there's all this kind of, oh God, the pain he's in. It's like every nerve in it. And there's like this monologue to how much pain this guy is in. And I'm like, but he was trying to like kind of do inappropriate things with a young girl. Again, not sure that this is a loss. He comes out.
Yeah, but they don't know that. We know that.
Right. But the decision from the head of the camp to say, let's not let anybody know about this accident and let's keep going and not tell anybody.
Jaws. It's Jaws.
He is the guy who runs this camp. He's probably a distant cousin of Mayor Vaughn from Amity. Like he consistently makes bad decisions for the bottom line and keeps a situation open that results in a lot of deaths that could have been avoided.
Right. But it's like when you're at summer camp, it's like if you say marmot, there's a marmot attack. People are like, what are you talking about? But if you say there's a splasher, you got to panic. You got to panic.
You're sleeping in bunks with no locks. I mean, I went to these camps.
Yes.
Anybody really back then could have come in off the campgrounds even. There wasn't like cameras. I mean,
It's true.
I'm just thinking of that now, like how
you were in terrible danger at camp.
I was in terrible danger.
But also, no one's paying attention to these kids at night. I mean, they're hanging out. They're like night swimming. They're taking out a canoe.
Well, when I went to sleepaway camp, we would sneak out of our bunks in the middle of the night. We would do.
Wow.
We would go across to the other camps and go down to the beach and everything. Like.
Oh,
what'd you do on the beach? Did you have sex and drugs?
Chesapeake Bay. It was a Chesapeake Bay. So.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. It was just, there was a lot of stuff going on.
I never had the summer camp experience, so I can't speak to it. I only know what I've learned from the movies, and it's if you go to summer camp, you're going to get murdered, you guys.
It's a bad idea usually.
That's what's going to happen. You're going to get killed.
I felt like because I grew up in like Orange County, and so the summer camps that were available or affordable, I think, for my family was like the YMCA camp. And so it was kind of had this patina of religiosity about it. But we actually got to go to like Catalina Island. There was this camp, Fox was the name. And then there was a Camp Bluff that was up in the mountains. And it was totally like Friday the 13th. You're right. There were no locks. Everything was like very iffy and old even then.
For all I know, somebody died while I was at my camp and they never told us.
Just like this.
The guy kept it under wraps. It's like, don't tell anybody about it.
It's a secret. No one's going to notice this guy. And I love this guy. It's like, oh, he turned over and I can still breathe. And, then you have all these guys going, we should totally leave him by himself. Again, why is this one guy in his, I don't know. And then, of course, they have the great reaction shot, where we get to see the corpse. And you're like, what exactly did the killer do to him? I don't know. Off-screen deaths. But
see, that happens a lot in these sleepaway camp movies. But it's a low budget thing for sure. But at least it's funny what they're doing here, though. It's their kills are over the top.
Yes,
you really can't see them most of the time.
Yes,
you just get the hint that that was crazy.
Well, it's kind of like it's the not elegant version of what I think Fincher does effectively in Seven, right? We talk about it and you see the aftermath, but you really don't see the actual.
Right.
This is very different than the stylings of Mr. Fincher, but it's the same idea.
Yeah. Fincher wants you about this film, comparing it.
I know, but it's good for him. I had to sit through Gone Girl. He can deal with that. Jeff Luce, Wet Hot American Summer is the ultimate summer camp dream. Oh, That is witty, and talk about great cast too. Like I felt like everyone was in that.
Yeah, it's very funny. I
Yeah.
like the TV show too.
Oh, I never saw the show. Was it as good as the movie?
There's 2 seasons. I mean, no, because yes and no. I mean, it's a TV show, but they're only 22, 24-minute episodes, and they're just as silly, and they like double down on playing with the tropes. I really liked it. If you like this cast in Wet Hot American Summer, you just like the tone, then I don't see why you wouldn't like the series.
I like it when they're actually fair to the actual movie. It's hard to do a successful series based on a movie. They usually screw it up,
right?
But it's like I remember when Sandra Bullock tried to do Working Girl, or was it? And you're just like, or
yeah. Well, I liked the thing about the series that really works is the first season, especially, is a prequel, but all the same actors are playing the counselors, and they look much older. So that's like an ongoing joke through the whole thing.
Oh,
and then the second season, I think, is like a reunion 10 years after Wet Hot American Summer. So the 2 seasons are on either sides of the movie. Very fun.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, going back to the movie, so after this shows up, it's a little harder to hide because now we've lost a kid. So they have to call the authorities. Again, the best outfits on all the men.
Yeah.
So good. But then we come back to kind of a sweet burgeoning friendship with maybe a chance for some kind of feelings.
Yeah, it seems sweet. By the way, that guy with the tight shorts in that last still that you had, he's one of the actors in Return to Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, he basically is still working in the same job at camps.
And is he still wearing dolphin shorts?
Yes, and he still talks the same way, and it's delightful and hilarious. Yeah,
he's playing with a poor man's John Travolta.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
totally. He could have been a sweat hog. I found this very cute. Like I found they kind of had like a nice little thing, and you were really rooting for Angela to come out. Of her shell. He gets her to start talking, like not even until maybe half an hour into an hour and 25-minute movie, she finally starts to speak, but only to him. It's kind of sweet. She's being bullied. These guys kind of are supporting her, which is lovely. But amidst this kind of blooming would-be romance, there's a slasher going on at the camp. We don't know based on the point of view. It could be one of the crazy ass kills. It's one of the
in that sort of series of events that you're referencing with the like romance and all that stuff. The bully character that you like so much. I think my favorite scene is when she comes up to Angela, who's sitting on the bench, and the boy runs away out of fear, and this bully counselor is like, Angela, you should go swimming.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you, Angela. And Angela just stares at her, and it goes on for so long.
Oh, they just hold it. And what's crazy is it's like, I don't know if they got briefed from, like, Angela just saw like half of her family destroyed in the water. And like, you guys have now taken her to a camp on the water, and you're trying to get her to go in the water. There's a sensitivity chip missing. It's some of the characters here, perhaps. But it's so fun. But I love that, like, some of these guys, like, one of my favorites is like, one of the older guy, counselor's picture, using the restroom, and we have a broomstick to lock him in the stall. And then somehow it's like, I found like a nest of killer bees. And then they cut to the aftermath,
Yeah. I love how he was able to transport that nest without it, breaking on him.
The killer is like, I'm going to wait for this guy to go to the bathroom, knowing that I've stolen a nest, and knowing that he'll be in the stall with the one window that I can then open and then put this through on a stick, knowing this will happen. And you're like, it actually unfolds because you just see the cutting and the noise and the screaming, and then there's just this pan, and then you see the makeup after the effect, which I think is funny because like this
maybe maybe they got help from Jason Statham. That's how they knew how to do this. And I say they not because there's more than one killer. I say they because I'm progressive.
Oh, I see what you did there. So we have this very weird flashback moment. Like, well, we'll get to that later. I don't want to get out of order, but so you've got like our mean girl trying to put the moves on Angela's would-be main squeeze. She's not very comfortable with a lot of contact yet. And the mean girl with the Suzanne Summers, I don't know, kind of Cocker Spaniel-esque haircut braid situation, puts the moves on, and you're like, oh my God, now I hate this guy. I was totally rooting for him to be the nice guy who pulls Angela out, and now I'm like, oh, you don't even like this girl. You boys are so mean. And it's like, so now I'm no longer rooting for him. And he's probably jeopardized himself. But the other thing I love about this,
I think it's easy when you're young to get seduced by.
He was horny.
Yeah, he's horny. He's a good guy. He's just horny. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Well, one thing I also love. There's a shot in this. There's a sequence where the guy who is trying to hide the deaths that are racking up at this point, who owns it, he seems to have no problem hitting small children. So he's like literally beating him up. And then in the background, you see the mean girls have picked up Angela because they're going to throw her in the water. So I'm like, all I see is like abuse of minors in like this one shot.
I think you were allowed to hit kids back then, though. Right?
It looks like they were.
Did you, Scott, did you see people at your summer camp getting brutally beaten or thrown in the water?
The person who owns the camp?
Didn't see it, but I'm not saying it didn't happen.
All right. Duly noted, but
I do have. There were many nights where the girlfriend of my counselor that slept in the bunk behind a wall. There were many nights where she came over and I could hear them having sex.
Wow, that was not happy at the YMCA.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to be quiet with the thin. Oh, Jesus Christ! These goddamn teenagers.
I don't think they really cared, honestly, back then.
Let the kids hear. Let them listen.
And yet we've all made it and survived as adults somehow. Jeff Lewis, at the middle school and high school, the dean could hit you with a paddle if you got a disciplinary referral. Wow.
Jesus.
Still using paddles? I don't know. Physical violence is never the answer.
No, my friends growing up that went to a Catholic school got paddled. They told me.
Well, the Catholics.
Yeah, the Catholics. Yeah. They're kinky. Those motherfuckers are kinky.
I know. They're like, what do we do after the Crusades? Oh, children's crusades.
Children.
Oh, you know what? How about the Inquisition? I'm like, you're twisted. A little weird. But so then you start racking up all these deaths. You start abusing the hell out of Angela, who's like, oh my God, stop. The guy who's running the whole thing, hiding said deaths, is like pounding on like her cousin. You're like, this is a very demented place. And then we get the oneer. Right. This is where you get to see the J.C. Penney fashion in all of its 1980s.
This is the shot I was talking about before. The levels are great.
Yeah, like they're trying to space it out. And again, the guy in red, bless him.
A great DP. Great.
They're like, it's a 4K. It's like, it's just fun. But then you've got the creeper factor, right? Where suddenly this girl's like, yeah, can I like have dinner and I'll meet up with you later? And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm believing this, although I am loving his outfit again.
I'm going to say this about his reaction to her coming onto him so strongly is when she leaves, he genuinely looks confused.
Yeah, he can't believe it either.
And I was like, what? He's like,
now I got to perform.
That's right.
I got to find my pills.
They didn't have Cialis.
I just ate these special berries that grew in the woods.
Yeah, special mushrooms. So that's all being set up, and of course she has to get ready, and they're like, "Oh, I guess the showers are full." She's like, "I guess I should go to the isolated cabin where no one goes, and that's where I'll take a shower." So obviously you've got the obligatory, you have to have a shower slasher scene, but the way this is staged, it's like she's leaning up against a wall that is so thin that you could put a knife easily into it. And then I love that then the dude
I had some Valley apartments with shower walls that were that thin.
Really?
It's not unbelievable.
But I also love so that she falls and we have a very straight line considering what was going on.
A good clean.
But this is again, no one reacts in this movie to the truly terrible things that are happening. And this guy is like, oh no, like he thinks he's gonna get laid. He sees this woman literally sliced down the middle, and he's like, okay, gotta go. And you're like, who responds this way? You own this camp. You've lost another camper. It's like, but just no.
He's got a lot riding on the camp financially, obviously.
Apparently,
everything is invested in this camp. He has no choice.
And so then the kills start to ratchet up because we got to get to the conclusion, like who is doing this, what is going on. I love that you've got our mean girl, who's curling her hair. One of the most hilarious and inappropriate deaths in this movie. Again, you don't thankfully see what's going on with the curling iron.
It's all suggested. It's
all suggested through shadows.
It's very classy. I have a clip of this scene if you want to see it.
Do you have a clip? Because the shadow work on this,
it's really good. I have a clip.
Is everything. Yeah, let's run it.
I'll show it to you. Here's the clip. Enjoy.
Mike, is that you? Who's that? Well, whoever it is, don't turn the light on or we'll have to go to this stupid social. Oh, it's you. What do you want? Well,
So scary.
That was good because my dog actually he got alerted to the screen. He doesn't react to the TV a lot, so actually, what's going on here?
It's totally, yes, Jeff, for sure. I mean, but like
a really good self-tape for
really good. That was like some Gus Van Sant psycho shit. Like boom, 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 boom. First shot, baby.
That's really what we did. My favorite shot in that sequence, though, is when it cuts. It cuts from her, and then it's just far away from her POV.
Yeah,
that's my favorite cut because it's like, what is happening?
Well, and it's weird because in the original film too, there's like the outline of clearly the boy that we, as a decoy or red herring or something. So it doesn't even make sense in the original movie. So you're just like, okay, maybe that's who it is. I don't know.
I mean, spoiler alert: it's not a decoy or a red herring.
it's
the killer.
But it's.
I don't know who could it be. Who could it
possibly be?
Who could it be? At this point, the first time you saw this, where were you at this point? Were you like, "Who's the killer?" or did you know?
I guess we could say who it is. Yeah, no, because there's only one character that behaves like completely weirdly, and has issues. Like it's like the telltale sign of like that's the person. And like the bullying, you get to see why. But like this was also the era where we'd already done Prom Night. Like we'd already done, I feel like Prom Night and Terror Train, both with Jamie Lee Curtis, same plot. We did something terrible to you when you were a kid. We killed somebody. I know what you did last summer. Or you thought you were having sex with Jamie Lee. Now he's on the train, but it's the same plot with like the same kids that tormented you getting their one-uppance, but it's the person they tormented that's behind.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that bully thing. I mean, Scott, did you, when you saw this the first time, did you think you knew who the killer was at this point?
No.
Okay.
You didn't know.
Oh, at this point.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, at this point, yeah.
But then this point, technically, I think maybe the reason they show you the like shadowy figure that looks sort of like a boy is to throw you off from what you were thinking you knew. So my question is, did this throw you off? It's like usual. It's the same thing as Usual Suspects. Like I knew it was Kaiser Soze for a while, but then they started convincing me that it was Gabriel Byrne's character.
Right. Until the limp.
Yeah. So
memory.
I see.
But I'm just wondering, is this movie as effective in its mystery storytelling as The Usual Suspects?
Oh, that's a high bar, Todd. How about Friday the 13th?
Your experience, your initial experience is what I'm talking about. If your initial experience was the same, like you were thrown off the trail with this sequence, then it's just as effective. I'm not saying it's as good a movie as Usual Suspects. I'm just saying it's just as effective. That's all.
Right. No, I see what you're saying. I don't know. I mean, the thing I liked about Friday the 13th twist, I mean, that's a little bit of a twist too, because there's no reason that for the mom, you're thinking it's one of the kids or something. I think in that, at least I did longer than I should have. This one, I felt pretty sure like, well, there's one person who's acting like Norman Bates. I'm going to go with that person being the person. But again, I thought it was ballsy because it's like, no pun intended, to have cast, the girl at the time in that role, because we were not used to seeing that. So I felt like, oh, this is like almost a gender flip Friday the 13th in the spirit of kind of movie.
But like the first Friday the 13th, the killer was a woman. Right?
Oh, right. It's the mom, but you don't really have enough clues to figure out why.
No, and part of the reason the original Friday the 13th ending was silly for me, I was like, oh, that was a woman this whole time? I mean, and Betsy Palmer is a broad-shouldered woman, granted. But it just seemed like maybe there were more masculine strengths involved in certain killings. Not that women obviously can't be as strong as men. That's been proven by the Olympics and J.K. Rowling and everybody. But I just, from my kid perspective, when I saw, Friday the 13th, and I was sort of like, oh, it's the lady in a sweater.
It's the lady from Mr. Roberts. But
it's a little bit of a stretch, but this one, like, I feel like it almost, I mean, I don't know if it was conscious, probably wasn't, but I felt like it took that stretch and tried to justify it in sort of a remake of Friday the 13th.
I don't think that's wrong. I definitely think they were definitely going for the whodunit. They were definitely not giving you as much information as you needed when you needed, if you're playing fair. But Agatha Christie never did, so what else. But but I also think, give them credit for there was an attempt to do something different.
I don't think, and I think there was the whodunit, but then we all know what the bigger reveal is.
Right.
At the end, it was more always. I think it was always going to be more about that.
Yeah.
Even if you figured it out before.
And I don't think people, again, this is, we'll wrap it up because I think there's a larger commentary on that. But then things get really crazy in this part of the movie, and then it just kind of rapid fire until we get to the ending. Where once again, this guy goes and sees the girl he thought he was going to hook up with, spliced in half, doesn't react normally, beats up this kid again, and then you're waiting for him. He runs out in front of a Target. So this is a director who has a sense of humor.
And again, he's wearing a really great outfit.
The best outfits. This is his I'm going to get laid outfit, right? Yeah. He's wearing this to meet the hot girl. And then
this sequence is a direct ripoff of Friday the 13th.
Absolutely, with the
target and the arrows. It's exactly. Yeah.
And then it starts to take a very quick turn where suddenly Angela, who's like, I'm not going to forgive this guy for making out with the mean girl. She's like, why don't you meet me at this time in this place later? And so, of course, he's like, oh, okay, great, right? As any young boy would. But one of my favorites is the reveal of the dead girl who'd been sliced in half. They bring back the sheriff because now we have yet another body. This is my favorite stuck-on mustache, maybe in film. Like he apparently
when you make it a still like that, I didn't know if I noticed it in the movie.
Oh my god! They're like, we didn't even try
when
to
you do it like that. It's like holy shit.
But apparently they had sent him away. He got another role, shaved his mustache. They're like, bro, we need you back. And they're like, bing, bing. And they just kind of went with it. But I just think again, today you could maybe do a little bit better, but it's just kind of a delightful thing. So you're like, okay, what's going on? And then all of a sudden it's like, we see these guys looking for people who have split up. You get the sense very quickly something is not right with our boy because he's been decapitated. And then there's like this very odd, and this starts to get to maybe where it's a little controversial for some in terms of what's the intent of the filmmaker, where you have these flashbacks, ostensibly Angela flashing back to her dad, perhaps with this person in bed. We have...
But wasn't he the one when the boating accident happened, right? He's like,
right.
Gone.
Yeah. It's
right?
little, so they're putting it together.
Yeah.
They so like, what do we see? But there's this very odd style, like we're black behind us, flashlight lighting. So all of that's going on. Presumably this is where Angela's really being revealed, is that she's cracking up. And then you start to get a sense, like we go from this to another flashback where the big twist, right? Tell us the big twist, Scott, that this is where it's all revealed minutes before this film ends.
Well, the aunt really wanted a daughter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And she turned, what's his name again?
This boy, basically.
I forget what his, into her, raised him as a her.
Right.
Played by a her. It's like it's a lot to process.
Exactly. But it's like, okay, so like the boy survives the boating accident that opens the film, ostensibly goes and is raised elsewhere, and then becomes Angela. And then this is like, of course, the money shot, as the film like famously like, okay. Like the plot twist is it's this little boy who's been forced into living like a girl who's had a psychotic split. And this is why, and this is a true story, because this is the image most people remember, like poster art, T-shirts. It's kind of a cult thing. The first time I ever saw Sarah Silverman, all I could think of was like, she's the girl from Sleepaway Camp. and I can't unsee it now. I'm just like, it's Sarah Silverman. Like I could, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I get that.
I can't understand. But there are some people, and I was curious what you guys thought about this. There are some folks that think this is anti-trans, that it's some kind of political commentary, that it's super offensive. And I'm like, it's a slasher film. So on some level, it's offensive, I guess.
I mean, it obviously wouldn't be done today they wouldn't have this trans be the victim or be the killer. I mean, be the killer.
Right.
And and if they did, it would be played by a real trans person, actor.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's also like this is child abuse.
Yeah,
not transitioning to another, very much a man, obviously, but lives in this closeted kind of world. I actually didn't see it as homophobic, which might be controversial. I think they were trying to go for a big plot twist at the end.
I don't think they were thinking about any of those things back
then.
then.
I don't either, but there's something about the hyper sexualization and dressing of the male counselors in a very kind of more gay way, I think, than typical guys in these movies were dressed.
I mean,
it's interesting to combine that.
I grew up, I was a teenager in the
Yeah.
I was not a teenager in the 70s, but I did, in the 80s, but I did wear like some of those clothes, not the half shirt.
Right. So
Why not?
like the tight shorts and those socks, and
yeah,
they also didn't look like that guy. I mean, maybe I did a little bit back then, but
but the stances and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think it becomes interesting because it stands out. It stood out then when I was a kid.
sex
It stands
sells.
out now.
You know that sex sells.
It sells, but this is usually the slasher.
I mean,
genre.
Tracy, do you think it was on purpose?
I don't think that there was a bad intention to it. I understand people.
But I'm asking, like, the homoeroticism.
Yeah,
I think it led
cool.
up to the transgender reveal. Do you think that was on purpose?
I think it was a choice to photograph the boys the way that they were. By contrast, the girls are not. The girls are in baggy kind of clothes, but the boys, like, even when they're walking in their jeans, they're open. You know, half of them are there anywhere. I think that's a dramatic choice where the men are more objectified in a genre at this moment where it was all about the ladies usually. So I think that in itself would be interesting. But given the twist at the end, it's almost like he has no problem. He's very open, whatever. I don't think it's a negative film, but I do have friends that find this very offensive and very anti-trans. And I listen to that point of view. And if it offends you, absolutely. But
I think this movie.
I don't think it was me.
Well,
I think this movie's always been offensive. I mean,
it's a slasher film. It's like, what is it offensive? You know?
Well, but it's supposed to be. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was offended.
I don't think back then it is now. Now you see it, but I don't think this director was thinking about any of this back then.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. I think it was like a happy accident that it wound up like it.
But the way he shoots the men, I think it is another thing that just makes this film have maybe another level, intended or not. But if you look at every other movie like this, if you look at The Burning, they're not dressed like these guys. You know, there's something interesting about the way that he's photographed, and it's just one of those quirky things. And I feel like it's funny because I think we got very stuffy. Like Todd and I have talked about this a lot on the show. Like after the 90s cycle, kind of, you know, erotic thrillers, The Basic Instincts, the Sharon Stone cycle, we kind of took sex out of film a little bit. We got a little PG-13 friendly, and we didn't have, like, we weren't doing Henry and June. We weren't doing NC-17, Cook Thief, Wife Lover. Those kind of went away at the studio level a little bit. And I think what's interesting is that we used to be really progressive. And if you go back to, I would argue, like, I love the pre-code films of the late 20s and early 30s that are very sexual, very open about what's going on, taboos about all kinds of sex. It's like, and then we got really chaste in the 50s. You know, there's this, and I think with things like Euphoria on television, this younger generation, or Challengers, also with, you know, Zendaya most recently, younger generations are finding their sexuality in television maybe the way some of us grew up with, like 80s or 90s films where they were, I mean, it would be hard to watch a film from the 80s in this genre and not see boobs. Like that was my recollection. Today, it's very unusual to have a star take off their clothes. And if it is, it becomes like a thing people talk about, like, did you see Jennifer Lawrence in the comedy? You know, like it's, as opposed to like everybody was naked, I think in the 70s and 80s, a little bit more maybe. And so it's just, I think it's just it's a remnant of its time, but he does make interesting choices with the way he shoots these men. I don't know, it stood out.
And he was straight.
And he was straight, which makes it even more interesting. It's like, you know what? The girls are always being objectified. Yeah. You know, and he's playing. It's cool.
If that was a conscious choice, I think it's brilliant.
Or maybe the costumer was just like in on it and the director wasn't, but I don't know how you missed that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was more like the costumer.
Yeah. But like, I think, you know, it's just, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of cool things about the kills, the attempts, what they did with no money. And also just riding a wave. You know, I'm with you. I hope he made all the money in the world and he never had to worry about money again, this guy. You know? Yeah,
me too. Well, he got a wife out of it, so that's good, right?
So we like that.
Scott, if you were pitching, you know, a young person now and why they should watch this movie, what would you tell them?
I think it's a great, I think it really represents that period. If you want to, like, it's a slasher film when we call slasher films, like, that was a genre. Like, now there's so many horror films or just thrillers, but this is like a true slasher film. of that period. Also, I think it's so bad it's good, you know.
Yeah.
And the clothes, I think, you know,
Clothes
and all
and the
those,
location. It's
the
pretty.
location. I think you should have like a night where you watch Meatballs and Sleepaway Camp.
Nice. That is a good double
Double
feature.
feature, yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like The Burning is that too for me. You know, like
Oh yeah.
like I feel like there's a good cycle of those movies that I don't know, but it's there's something. I feel like there was an era in horror where whether it's the The Exorcist, I guess, had Reagan, but it was predominantly about that mother. And I feel like The Omen, it has Damien, but it's about those adults. And like The Changeling, it's like George C. Scott. But somehow the target audience for horror films, when you started putting younger kids in them, and we started seeing ourselves on the big screen, and then I think home video coming in at that era where you could watch it over and over again, and you had sleepovers at your friend's house. I think that there's a fondness that Gen X has because we grew up with these films associated with it's a little naughty. Parents probably wouldn't want us to see it. We get scared. We watch it with our friends. We watch it a lot. We can have this video, record it off cable, whatever. And it kind of became a thing. And I think there's a fondness. I feel nostalgic. When
are they still making films where high schoolers get killed? I mean, they're probably not.
It's PG-13. They pull the punches, right? It's like Megan. Megan made a lot of money, and it was a PG-13. Oh, yeah. But Peacock streamed the R version, which not just because it's grosser, but it's a better film. The R-rated version. They had it's better, and it's what it wanted to be. But it made so much money that they were going after the tween audience, right? So it's like, it's a different.
I don't like that.
It's a different time. Yeah.
I'm glad that we still have R-rated movies, even though for the most part I'm not liking them, like The Substance and Never Let Go and stuff like that. But I'm glad they're there. Yeah. Should we do a round of Be Bad or Be Best?
I think we absolutely should. You go first.
All right, I'll go first. So, Scott, Trace and I will take turns giving you titles of movies, and we want you to tell us if they're so bad, nobody should see them ever, or they're so bad it's awesome and everyone should see them. All right, so I'm starting. My Be Bad or Be Best title is Return to Sleepaway Camp, 2008's Return to Sleepaway Camp, which sees the return of Felissa Rose. I always forget her name. Felissa Rose, what a name. The return of her. And by the way, I sort of misrepresented the movie. You don't really see Felissa Rose in her full visage until the very end, but the fact is she's in the entire film.
And by the way, that name, she was meant to be a movie star.
Yeah, she's meant to be a movie star. She's great. She plays the sheriff of the town, who's had throat cancer and has one of those voice box things, and wears a beard, and it's hilarious. I highly recommend it if you like Sleepaway Camp. This Return to Sleepaway Camp is delightful. But what are you thinking?
Well, based on Sleepaway Camp, I didn't see Sleepaway Camp, this one, but I would say go see it. So bad.
That's a Be Best from you. It's got Isaac Hayes. What more could you want?
I was gonna say this one I haven't seen. I did see Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. That was where I stopped. This one, by the way, the tagline "Kids are so mean!" ! That plus Isaac Hayes is in it. Yes, I'm gonna go Be Best as well because that's just delightful.
I think you're good. I think this movie did a better job of honoring Sleepaway Camp than 2 and 3 did.
Okay.
I mean, I think 2 and 3 were just like pure trash cash-ins, and Bruce Springsteen's sister was available. I can't.
Amazing. All right, this is one. I'm curious to hear what you think. This is a new film. I just streamed it this weekend because I'm playing catch up. I missed a couple things. Scott, guest goes first. Be Bad, Be Best. If you've seen it, it's like I Saw the Glow. It's a A24 kind of thriller, spooky.
I saw the TV glow, right? Yeah,
right. I saw the TV glow. I'm curious if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it, but based on the poster, I'm going to say Be Best.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I feel like it's
and the title.
It's a little poltergeist subliminal come see me. I like this film a lot, actually. I think it's a Be Best too. I'm not sure it ends in a way that will satisfy everybody. I think it has that A24 patina, so it might be seen as pretentious enough for people to be like, oh, it's fine. But I do think this is an interesting filmmaker, also a trans filmmaker, who is doing something that feels very 80s in this, although it's set in 93, 2003, and I think it jumps ahead to 2013 in some places. But I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Is it streaming? Is it available?
Streaming? Yeah, it was part of. I saw it for free on something that I have. But I highly recommend.
It's on Hulu, or it's on one of the big ones.
Yeah,
Hulu, Amazon, or.
Did you see it, Todd?
Yes, I'm the, I guess, dissenting opinion here.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a PG-13 horror movie, which I'm always.
I thought it was kind of weird, sci-fi, odd.
Yeah, it's weird sci-fi, but it was so slowly paced, and the lead performance was so. And I get there's a reason for these things,
right?
But I don't know that the young actor was quite up to filling up what he needed to do, which was very little. And he talks so slow, like everything takes forever for him to figure out. I found it too slow to be fully engaging, and you know, the transgender thematic elements like didn't really pounce on me in a way that was interesting. I just, in the end, I was like, I've seen a lot of movies lately that I feel like could have been boiled down to an episode of The Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt or something. I definitely think this is a worthy Twilight Zone episode, but it's not a feature film. That's what I would say about it.
Interesting.
It's a Black Mirror episode.
It's actually it feels like if Black Mirror was around in the 80s but set in the 90s, it would be this. I think it's really stylized. I think. And again, everyone has a different sense of pacing. I don't think of this as a horror film, but it's so weird that I felt like, man, my art school self would have loved this. My teen self would have thought it was interesting the way I think I liked Donnie Darko when it came out. Like there's something that's not.
Yeah, I didn't like Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko, like I found it repulsive. So, I mean, in this I didn't find repulsive, but I found it ultimately uninteresting. It's just interesting that you compare those two, and there might be something wrong with me, is what.
But it's like if that's not your thing, then this is definitely not going to be your thing. Like I said, I don't think it knew how to end it. Like I think it was one of those like it was an exploration thing, but I was like, I'm curious to see what this filmmaker wants to do next. It's like this isn't a really ambitious movie. A24 is already letting you do this. You've done a couple of shorts and like one other film. And so I think this is a young filmmaking voice that I'd like to see what's next. Like I'd like to see, kind of stepping stone movies like this. So I'm going to be curious to follow this filmmaker, but any hoozles. All right. Next is...
We've got, I don't know, what do you want to do? Do you want to do when bad films happen to good actors?
Absolutely.
All right. You go first this time.
All right. I think this is a perennial offender most of his films could probably fall in this category. But for this week's offering of like working with cast I would kill to work with who are so amazingly talented in a film that I think is unwatchable. Tim Burton's Mars Attacks, Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close,
really?
Pierce Brosnan, and Danny DeVito in a film that besides you cannot remember, and the original is better. And I will die on a hill for that.
I mean, Scott, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this movie. I like Mars Attacks a lot.
No.
I think it's super stupid. It's a great stoner film.
No.
You have an endless parade of stars, including Michael J. Fox. You put Michael J. Fox in a movie, I'm going to like it. Yeah, it's an amazing cast, and it's so stupid and cynical and nihilistic and a lot of things. And it came on the heels of Independence Day, a movie that took itself so seriously it was hilarious. So
And
I think
it's
people
not
it was
taken
harder.
seriously.
It was harder for people to swallow Mars Attacks after Independence Day.
That's a good theory. Okay.
But for me, it delivered all that it was supposed to be, which was a dumb 50s space alien movie. I'm not saying it's a good movie. I'm just saying I find it very watchable.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't know that I saw this one.
Mars Attacks, no.
A lot of almost all of Tim Burton. Well, not all of them, but there's a few I might have missed. But
yeah,
I don't.
This one tanked, and I saw it at the Chinese theater on opening night.
Yeah, I think Stoker Race is a good one too, where it's like there's some really talented people in that. I don't know. There's just something about I think Tim Burton is such a beautiful visualist. I love the way his films look, and I love Danny Elfman the way they sound, and I love watching him get insanely talented cast to be silly. I feel like post Edward Scissorhands, with maybe one or two exceptions. Ed Wood was great. But I don't know that I feel like a lot of his films are great. I think he ruined Dark Shadows. He ruined Planet of the Apes. You know, he ruined Willy Wonka for me. I don't think he's the best storyteller that way.
I haven't seen Beetlejuice, but I don't disagree with you.
Me neither. I like the first one so much.
But Mars Attacks worked for me because it felt like here's a guy paying homage to the dumb 1950s comic books that he liked. And, you know, I like that stuff, so it worked for me on that level.
Yeah, I usually do too. I don't know. I'm so jealous of this cast. I mean, my God, if we could take the energy of Glenn Close and like Annette Bening and Jack Nicholson and Pierce Brosnan, we could solve the energy crisis.
Now, there was just recently a film that totally bombed that might fit into this category. I didn't see it, but it was based on a video game with Cate Blanchett and.
Oh yeah,
the Eli Roth movie.
Yeah, actually. I love that you brought that up, Jeff.
But I haven't seen it. But from what I've heard, I feel like it would fit this category.
By the way, we are on the same wavelength because the very first episode where we introduced it, I had just seen that movie, and that was my first entry into this because I was like, "How did you waste Cate Blanchett and Jamie Lee Curtis?" Like I was Kevin Hart. Like it's like people who should never be in the same frame.
Well, the way you waste them is to cast them as people who are supposed to be 25 years younger.
Or in a Neely Roth film that's sci-fi. Maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah. A PG-13 for sure.
PG-13, sci-fi. Yeah. I bet there's no version of Cate Blanchett going, oh, yes, I play Borderlands at home all the time. It's a great video game. There's no way that happened. They're like, hey, that girl. You just did Tar. Followed up with this, or whatever.
She didn't even know what she was signing when she signed the contract.
No, but I swear to God, she's channeling Melanie Griffith in Cherry 2000, which is also fun. But I love Cherry 2000, unapologetically. Anyway.
All right, here's mine. This is a fourth in a franchise of horror movies called Jeepers Creepers. This Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Now, of course, I like Jeepers Creepers and Jeepers Creepers 2, which I saw them both in the theater, and that was before I knew that the writer-director of these movies is a convicted pedophile. But then they made, and he went to jail, and then he got out, and for some reason they were like, yeah, give him Jeepers Creepers 3. So that was a Sci-Fi Channel movie, and then this is yet another Sci-Fi Channel movie. And the thing that bums me out about this one the most, because it's the worst of the bunch. It's so low budget.
No.
At every turn.
It's
just.
I think we never got reborn to a title. It's
that's right. That's correct. Yeah.
And the worst part about it, thankfully, obviously, it's not a big part. She probably only had a day or two of work, but Dee Wallace is in it.
Oh,
and Dee Wallace is so great. On many levels as a human being and as an actress. And I don't know. I mean, she is such a willing actress. I don't know why more people don't call her, but she supports indie filmmakers. So if somebody with no money calls her up and says, "Can you help me out? Will you do this thing?" and then I can put your name in it, she's usually like, "Yeah, sure." So she did this and probably didn't understand the history of the franchise and the history of the people who were making money off of the franchise. So, I don't think she meant it, but she didn't deserve this. Like, certainly if you're going to hire Dee Wallace and use Dee Wallace, your movie, even if it is low budget, should be working a lot harder than Jeepers Creepers Reborn. That's all I'm saying.
Interesting. I remember seeing the first Jeepers Creepers in the theater. People already knew he was a pedophile in the past. So like I knew that going in. And I remember
because he got in trouble with powder, but that wasn't, he didn't go to jail. It was like dismissed.
Yeah. But we already
because our legal system works perfectly. So clearly he was not guilty at that time, but then later he got really guilty.
The allegations were there. We knew that when we saw Jeepers Creepers. And I just remember going, this is like icky. And then watching it, and I think actually the first Jeepers Creepers has some really effective kills and fun moments, and is actually pretty well done. But I remembered like is it Justin Long as a kid? I think it's young Justin Long, but like somebody like sniffing a guy's pair of like boxer shorts, and I'm like, this is a pedophile who has a scene with a young teen sniffing some other dude's shorts, and I'm like, it's like he's projecting this guy isn't okay. And I remember even then going, I think there's a problem. It's like how Quentin has a thing with women and feet. And you're like, I don't know that we all need to.
Yeah, I know. If I had known, I wasn't tracking any of that when I saw this movie.
Yeah.
What I tracked was that Francis Ford Coppola.
I'm glad you weren't tracking sniffing.
Produce it.
I wasn't tracking sniffing underwear.
But that was the controversy, though, that this guy with this past had Francis Ford Coppola supporting it. And
I understand. I understand that now. But what I'm telling you is, when that movie came out, whatever their fixers and all that stuff did a good job of keeping that information from me, because I did not know. For all I knew, this is a movie, just a new horror movie produced by Coppola.
I know that's
the thing. Coppola, the guy who made Megalopolis. But I get seeing it as creepy now. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but it's also like the first one is effective, and it's okay to be made uncomfortable. I mean, this whole thing of like I was made uncomfortable. Well, that's like we're going back to before the.
Well, but you were being uncomfortable for reasons outside of the movie, though.
No, I think that scene would be uncomfortable even if a pedophile didn't shoot it. I think that's like what, but like you were saying about like Strange Darling, like I think that film was intentionally wanting to challenge your version of between men and women, what is appropriate, what's not appropriate, what is consent, what is violence, what is she responsible for, what is he? I think it's purposely doing that, and it's okay to be made uncomfortable. And I have some friends that share our opinion, like Scott and I really loved it, and then I have other friends who really, really didn't like it, and I was fascinated to hear why they didn't like it, and I was like, I totally heard their point of view, but to me, it was more about them and what it brought up for them than I think maybe the movie itself. And that's when I think film gets to be really interesting, and that you can at least go see it and talk about it and disagree about it. And I think that film, on also a very low budget, feels like a very low budget movie relative to what we're doing. I like that. So I don't know. I just, as long as it's well done, but I do feel like this falls maybe like Sleepaway Camp itself. Like we wouldn't do it the same way today, if at all. Or we'd have to find a way to justify the twist, and it would be handled differently, I think, to Scott's point, right? So if we could do it, I don't know. Interesting.
Anyway, I just feel bad for Dee on that one.
Yeah, I love her and everything.
Yeah, let's end on a positive note. I was feeling sad for a moment.
Yeah.
Let's
By the
boost
way, I would go to my grave, speaking of your beloved Dee Wallace, and I don't like the Academy. It's so stuck up. But for my money, that lady should have been up for Best Actress for Cujo. That whole movie is on her face in like a car for most of it, and she's selling it, and it's an amazing performance. And if it weren't in that genre, she would have been nominated. She's so great. Anyway,
she's amazing. Yeah, she probably should have gotten some kind of nomination for The Howling too.
I love The Howling.
All right, I'll go first. Here's my boost. This is you made me think of it, Scott, because of this a summertime horror movie. This is another sort of it's end of summer, and the parents are driving their daughter up to college, and the family stops on the way at a relative's trailer park, like one of those like rental trailer parks.
Mm-hmm.
And things go really poorly. It's called The Strangers Pray at Night.
Ooh.
It's the sequel to The Strangers. I think it's blows the original The Strangers out of the water. And I just wanted to bring it up because now we've got Rennie Harlan doing like sort of mediocre. He did a mediocre remake of The Strangers, which is too soon for a remake already.
Really? How did I miss that?
It came out earlier this year. At the time, it was, and it's still one of the highest grossing horror movies of this year. And he shot it as a trilogy. So there's 2 more coming out, but I haven't. They were supposed to all come out this year, but none of the other 2 have been released. I don't know why.
I must have been in Belfast because I would have seen that. That's wild. Okay, I will look for that.
Yeah. But this one, this is what I'm saying. This one's actually good. I think it's a really good horror movie. It's unpleasant, gory, will freak you out. I think it works. There it is.
Jeff Luce, Reverse Boost. Do not watch Raccoon. It's just terrible. Like, there's no redeeming quality. This is a killer.
I can't not watch a movie called Raccoon.
I know. You've unleashed it. We have to watch it.
Raccoon is happening, Jeff, and it's your fault.
I will check that out because I actually thought the first Strangers was really good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was pretty good. My problem with it is, it was kind of more of the same torture porny stuff at the time, and maybe the leads didn't have the gravitas of performance. Like I was never like truly worried about them, and that is it's a different ball of wax with Strangers Pray at Night. This cast is fucking on fire. They're very good.
Is it streamable?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, because that sounds. I would like to see it. I really respected the first movie, though. I liked it. It's funny.
Well, you might not like this one then, but I mean, I just think it ratchets things up. I mean, there's people who think the original Purge is the best Purge. Those people are wrong. The best Purge is the Forever Purge. The Forever Purge is a perfect horror movie.
Well, I think, for our times,
I think this one is a perfect horror movie for what it is. So
okay, all right. And now Donald Trump is suggesting we do the Purge in real life.
Yeah, great.
I was like, really? Are you when you're eating your soup and throwing ketchup?
It's because they show him these movies at night before he goes to bed, and that's what's in his head, and it comes out his mouth.
Jesus, help us all. So the one I want to boost, and I'm not here to defend it as like Citizen Kane, but I'm going to boost it. Because it's no longer in the theaters. I think it had like a 1-week run or something. But you can stream it on Apple. You got half the Ocean's 11 cast. You've got George Clooney and Brad Pitt being George Clooney and Brad Pitt. Total movie stars. John Watts, who did all the Spider-Man films that I know I'm supposed to love and think are brilliant. I just don't care because I just don't care anymore. This is not without flaws. One could poke Swiss cheese in terms of plotting and logic. That being said, it is exactly the kind of movie that I feel like I grew up watching. Like this should have been a Paramount, Universal, Sony, maybe Warner Brothers before Zaslav era. Fun programmer with legit movie stars having so much fun that I just got swept up in that. There's a couple clever action scenes, but mostly it was like it didn't take itself seriously. These guys don't take themselves seriously, certainly not in this. And I just was like, God, it's so fun to see fun. And I'd been missing that because to Todd's point, and I haven't caught up on all the films he's been able to see yet, but even something like The Substance, which I know he didn't care for. I have friends that hate it. I have people who love it. Like I'm curious to see it myself, but like it's not fun. It's it's body horror and women being awful and all that. This is like really pretty men being really silly and fun. And I just feel like the times are so bleak right now that it was like a breath of fresh air. And it could have been I went in assuming nothing. But I just think these are the kinds of films that I hope Hollywood figures out how to make again. And I watched it.
you talking about wolves?
Wolves. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen this in the theater with a buttered popcorn and like a couple friends and then gone to dinner like we used to do pre-pandemic. And I just feel like if this kind of movie can't be made at a studio, has to be done at Apple, and I'm seeing it streaming, I'm not saying it's original in the sense that I haven't seen a bunch of this stuff before, but it is original in that it's not IP. You got 2 movie stars to play ball. You have a director who has, his choice of things to do, and that they wanted to do something like this to entertain, like more of this. I just miss having fun in movies. Not everything has to be Oscar winning and serious and depressing and pretentious. And I don't know how to end my film, but look at the shooting style. It's like, this is fun. And so I just always want to boost that, because if enough people watch it, we get to keep doing it. So I'm hoping, So
you got anything you want to boost, Scott?
Well, earlier we were talking about a bunch of films I've seen recently, but then while we've been doing this, I've thought of one. The last film that I really love, now that I'm remembering, had me on the edge of my seat, was the original. I never saw the second one, Don't Breathe.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. The second one, don't see the second one.
Okay.
No, because the second one does this weird thing where it turns, like, what's awesome about Don't Breathe is it's bad guys breaking into some blind guy's house.
Yeah.
But then it just turns out the blind guy's worse than they are, and they have no idea how much worse. So knowing what he is going into the sequel, and the sequel is asking us more to be on the side of the blind man than it is on the side of the crooks. So it's more like that sequel thing, which Sleepaway Camp does, where it's just, we're just going to enjoy watching the murderer murder people who are douchebags. And it just doesn't work for Don't Breathe. I mean, if it was a different kind of, if it was a slasher movie, maybe, but it's really not. So yeah, it doesn't work. But I think Don't Breathe is one of the great horror movies of all time. Yeah, I think it's so effective. Scott, what is there anything you want the people to know that they should look for you on, or performances coming up, or anything you want to plug? It's
quiet here right now.
Very quiet in this town right now.
Yeah, tell me about it. What about you, Tracy? Is there anything you want to plug?
Well, just, we're deep in post. We're doing our special effects on the Belfast movie. The creatures are coming to life, so that's really fun. Enjoying that process and getting into the score, and so excited about that. But at least the message I'm getting is, don't take things out in the TV world this year. It's over. No one's buying. Go back next year. Lots of consolidation, layoffs. The masters of the universe are just firing people thinking they're saving money, and then they don't have the support to make things, and then we're sending all this work overseas. So it's very frustrating. I think we're going to rebound next year. I really do believe that. I think traditionally, the year after all the strikes, the powers that be penalize all the guilds that call them out on their nonsense, in my opinion. So I think we're about through that, and they need new content. But it's frustrating. So, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I do think we're going to get it together, but I just don't know how quickly. For a lot of us who haven't been able to work as much as we want to, it's an inflection point. And I think a lot of us are holding our breath, for November, and we'll see what happens in terms of everything. Right. So, I think I'm excited about it being October. I do this thing every year just for myself. Todd always has me beat. He does it better than I do, probably year round. But I always try to watch at least 31 movies that are horror film specific for the month of. It's my own.
It's a good film. Actually, I will plug one of the films I've done.
Yeah.
That's, you probably haven't seen it yet, but I think it's like a whimsical horror comedy. Dave Made a Maze.
Dave Made a Maze. That's a great movie. Yes, of course.
Did you see it?
I haven't.
Yes, I saw it when it first came out. Yeah. That's a fun ass movie.
What is it? What's the story?
It's better to not know.
Yeah.
It's better to go in not knowing, because I went in not knowing, and if I had been told what was up, I don't know what I would have reacted, but it's very fun.
Dave
Going
made
blind. Yeah, Dave made a maze.
Okay, cool.
It's very funny. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. We'll do some more. We've got John Keating is returning to the show, and we're going to be watching a movie called The Private Eyes, which is a horror comedy starring Don Knotts and Tim Conway.
All right, wow,
Amazing.
I got to see that.
That sounds awesome.
You can rent it on Amazon. So there you go.
I love it. So it's not the Hall & Oates song, Private Eyes. Like, it's not that.
It's before, I think it's what inspired that song.
Probably. It's like Mandy, that Barry Manilow song into the Nick Cage film. It's like that. You're like, what? Probably not. Amazing. All right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, guys. Lots of fun.
Gem of childhood back to my nightmares.
All right. We'll see you next time, you guys. Bye.